subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
In this edition of Global Print, I will talk to you about Afghanistan-Pakistan and the impact that the Joe Biden administration, which has been sworn in overnight, will have on this region. But before that, dear viewer, I'd like to make an appeal to you. Please do subscribe and pay just a little bit for The Print's free, fair, objective, transparent and unhyphenated journalism. You know that we have been bringing you the best news stories and the videos, not just through these last several pandemic months, but even before. So please do pay a little. The link for a foreign national as well as for an Indian one, for a domestic one, is in the description of this video. So I do hope that you will click on this link and pay just a little bit. So back to my column Global Print, in which I talk about Afghanistan, Pakistan, and actually the role that Pakistan's ISI is playing in fomenting trouble in Afghanistan. And I start with Shah Mahmood Qureshi, who is the foreign minister of Pakistan, who says that he has complained to Kabul that India is interfering in this peace process between the Taliban and the Afghan government. And as you know, dear viewer, the Pakistanis have said very openly, and this has been widely acknowledged, that they have helped bring the Taliban to the negotiating table with the Kabul government. Now, that's the first, that, of course, would be the first acknowledgement that they do have enormous control over the Taliban. The second point is that perhaps Shah Mahmood Qureshi, of course, he doesn't say this, perhaps some of his concern or alleged concern stems from the fact that India's National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, was in Kabul just a few days ago, where he met the top leadership. He met his counterpart, Hamdullah Mohib. He met the Afghan's first Vice President, Amrullah Saleh. And actually, after the meeting with Mr. Saleh tweeted that we had a very long and a very nice discussion and we discussed the enemy. Now, no prizes for guessing who that enemy is. If you read Mr. Saleh's Twitter timeline, his Twitter feed, you will know very, very quickly that he's referring to Pakistan, because he has made no bones about the fact that he has suffered two very serious attacks on his life these past couple of years or so, and they have been masterminded by the ISI. So the fact that Mr. Saleh has tweeted this after his meeting with Mr. Ajit Doval gives rise to perhaps concern in Pakistan that something is up between India and Afghanistan. Now, the Indians have made no bones about the fact that they obviously want peace in the neighborhood, but especially in Afghanistan. This is going to be 20 years of the 9/11 attacks, and subsequently when the Americans threw out the Taliban unceremoniously. They have been in hiding ever since. But these last several years, the Pakistanis have turned on the tap and have been supporting, not just morally and but also with arms and with training, supporting the Taliban and pushing them back into Afghanistan. Now, this is where the dilemma is. The Talib are now in negotiations with the Afghan government for the future of Afghanistan. The Pakistanis are saying to Kabul that we do not want the Indians there. Of course, they are not even acknowledging that Afghanistan, being a sovereign state, has not just the ability, but will decide who its friends are. And if the Afghans want the Indians as their friends, then Pakistan must learn to live with that. And in this column of mine, I also talk about an article written by one of Pakistan's best-known journalists, Hamid Mir. The story is titled, "My Enemy's Enemy." And Mr. Mir takes the headline of his column from a book written by a man called Avinash Paliwal, who is a security and foreign policy analyst. He lives in London. He works in London. He's of Indian origin. And he talks about, in the book, he talks about the India, Pakistan, Afghanistan triangle. So what Hamid Mir does is he's quoting from the book, and he says that India's enemy, according to Mir, is Pakistan. Pakistan's enemy is Afghanistan, and I'm not sure how Hamid Mir arrives at that conclusion. So and from that he deduces that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is helping or reaching out to the Afghans because they want to put Pakistan in their place. And he goes on to add separately, not connected with the book, but separately he says that the Hazara killings in Balochistan, you know that 11 Hazaras were killed just recently in Balochistan, and their families mourned them very openly, were very angry with the Imran Khan government, and said that that the Prime Minister, that's Imran Khan, must come and mourn with them, and only then they will bury their loved ones. So Mr. Mir in his column says that last year in Kabul, there was an attack on the Kabul Gurudwara, in the Sikh Gurudwara there, and one of the attackers was an Indian national called Abu Khalid al-Hindi. So I did some reading and checking up on my own. And Mr. Mir is right, but only partially. And let me explain why. He is right about the fact that there was an Indian national who attacked the Kabul Gurudwaras, one amongst several. It was a big attack in February 2020. And his name is indeed, his nom de plume is indeed Abu Khalid al-Hindi. His name is Muhammad Anis. He's from Kerala. And what Mr. Mir is implying is that the Islamic State, which took responsibility for the Kabul Gurudwara attack, also took responsibility for the March killings, the Balochistan killings. He is not making the connection that the Indian national who was part of the Kabul Gurudwara attack also attacked the Hazaras. But his implication is clear, that the Indian government is fomenting trouble, not just putting the spokes in the negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government, but is also instigating or fomenting insurgency in Balochistan, fomenting trouble inside Balochistan, inside Pakistan. And he offers no proof for that, of course. This is an article that he has written. But I just wanted to add in my piece, and this is a question that I have not just for Mr. Mir, but for other people who write about this, is that how come when Islamic State was raising a state in West Asia a few years ago and raised about 30 to 40,000 fighters from across the globe, including from several Western countries, of course, thousands of Pakistanis joined the Islamic State. And in that melee, you had very, very few Indians. Some say 100, some say 150, less than that. Maximum, there would have been between 150 to 200 people who may have joined the Islamic State. So what does that mean? Does that mean that Indian Islam is so resilient that they do not want to send their children, their sons, and to fight somebody else's war because they believe that Islam is in danger? And I think that's the difference between Islam in India and Islam that is practiced everywhere else in the world. In India, Muslims feel that because you have a democracy, you will be able to fight your battles inside this democratic process. There may be a lot of problems with the Narendra Modi government, but at the end of the day, there is a rule of law and people will get justice, whether it's Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Jains, or anyone else, atheist included. So, and if you look at the numbers of militants from Pakistan in thousands who have joined not just the Islamic State, but the Taliban, the Haqqani network, I think the epicenter of terror, which a lot of analysts talk about, it's clear. We all know where that is. So perhaps global scholars should also look within and ask themselves, why is it that Pakistan has control, first of all, on the Taliban? And look at the senseless violence that is going on in Kabul and in the rest of Afghanistan these days. If you just read the Afghan press, you know that people are really, really worried. They say that when we leave our homes in the morning, we don't know whether we are going to come back that evening. Civil society activists have been targeted. Journalists have been killed. Human rights wallahs have been killed. Every day, there is not just one bomb attack in Kabul, there are several. Who is behind them? Nobody knows. The Taliban says that they're not taking responsibility, nor the Haqqani network. So it's not just that as if these bombs are exploding on their own. Somebody is masterminding this fear And that's the point of my article, is that this masterminding of fear inside Afghanistan is being done by Pakistan's ISI. And that's why the Joe Biden administration must pay much more attention to the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. Some say that Joe Biden's priorities will be China, 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 and Russia. But he will be making a mistake if he doesn't pour his attention into the Afpak region. If there is a lot of problem inside America, we know that America needs to heal itself. Then the Americans, along with other people in the neighborhood, India, Iran, Russia, must come together and help the resolution of this problem so that Afghanistan can be secure, the people of Afghanistan can be secure and can lead normal lives. So please do read my column, Global Print, and please tell me what you think about this video. I'm always open to your ideas and suggestions.